Yo, yo. Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I'm your host, the Soapman. Now we just gonna jump right off into this episode, y'all, but this episode we gonna do things a little bit different. You know, we gonna stray off the beaten path, so to speak. Because I want to talk to y'all one-on-one. When I first started doing my YouTube channel, I started off with a little monologue, something similar to this one right here, where we just had a talk one-on-one, you know, mano-y-mano. And so, I want to talk to you about Moses, but we're going to stray off the biblical narrative and just emphasize on the man Moses himself, you know? You know, for the past 6 episodes, I've been talking about nothing but Moses. It's like the Brady Bunch. Marsha. But only, it's not Marsha, it's Moses. Yeah, that was a joke, y'all. It was kind of lame, though. Anyway, we've been talking about Moses for the past 6 episodes. We're probably going to talk about him for at least the next 3, maybe 4. And Moses deserves our attention. You see, Moses is a very important character. He's one of the most prominent figures in the Holy Bible. And he has a very unique and special relationship with God. In fact, Moses claims in the Bible that God speaks to him face to face as a friend would. He also claims to have seen God, not his face, as no man can look upon the face of God and still live. But he says that God allowed him to see his hind parts or his back. Now, some may feel that this is a pretty big claim, and I can see where they're coming from. But maybe the special thing about Moses isn't that God spoke to him. Maybe it's Moses was able to recognize when God was speaking to him. Maybe God speaks to everybody and we just don't know it. But Moses knew it and he understood it. That's just a small theory of mine. But nevertheless, one of the things that gives Moses' claims such credence is how successful he was in his life. Moses was immensely successful in almost everything he did. I asked my friend Tammy, what do you think of when you hear the name Moses? And she answered, I think most people would say he split the Red Sea. And see, that's precisely what I'm saying. The mere mention of Moses' name intrigues, it sparks intrigue. It sparks wonders. His name is associated with miracles and magic. Just mentioning his name. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Why was Moses so successful? Why now today, when we mention his name, is his name associated with miracles and magic? Well, I'm going to tell you why. It all has to do with the genius of the man Moses. Let me break it to you down like this. Imagine you being the smartest man in the room. Put all the great minds of the earth in a room. And imagine being smarter than all those people. Think about how they would admire you. Think about how they would laugh in your face and kiss your rear end as being the smartest person in the room. Imagine Elon Musk when he goes to a dinner or a convention or something. Imagine how much tail kissing people do around him. And in my opinion, Elon Musk is a great man. He's a hard worker, but he is far from a genius. But just imagine being Elon Musk. How people would admire you. Look how people talk about him now. They call him a genius. They call him, I don't know, like Christ's return. They act like this man is like Christ's return. He's successful. He's rich. I'll give him that. But a genius he is not. He is a hard worker, though. Well, Moses would not have only been the smartest man in the room. All those other smart men would have been like children to him. So imagine being a grown-up in a room full of children. Imagine how you would impress them. They would probably look to you as an authority figure, maybe even a father figure. And if you were really impressive, they may even view you as a god, or as at least more than a man. So, thus the old saying, as easy as taking candy from a baby. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, okay, Troy, we get it. You're saying that Moses was really smart. But that's not quite what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Moses was a genius, and that his genius resulted in his legendary status. His genius resulted in the way we view him today in modern times. Let me put it to you like this. Have you ever seen the movie The X-Men? They had several sequels that followed the initial launching of the first X-Men. It was, pretty good. X-Men is about superhumans with superpowers. Maybe you've never seen the X-Men. How about this movie? Have you ever seen The Avengers? It came out not that long ago, at least within the last decade. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, okay, Troy, now you're talking about Moses was some kind of superhero with superpowers, and you sound absolutely ridiculous. Well, to that I say, you finally got it. And you're right. I am saying that Moses was a character stepped right out of a modern day comic book. He could have been one of the X-Men. I can't think of a better example. Speaking of X-Men, we're not just talking about any X-Men. Professor X. He didn't have to be an Avenger. He could have beaten the Avengers. This is a man who would have made Gandalf look like David Blaine. He would have made Merlin look like Chris Angel. He would have made a mockery of all of our heroes and great minds of our age. He would have had Albert Einstein looking like he was still counting on his fingers and toes. What I am saying to you is that Moses was a superhero with superpowers. And his superpower was that he was a genius. Now, I know some of y'all thinking to yourself, Soapman, you going too far. You sounding ridiculous. But I urge you to please give me this opportunity to back up what I'm saying and prove to you that this man was more than a great mind. This man was superhuman. I think by the end of this episode, at least I'm going to try to convince you that Moses didn't do miracles, but that Moses himself was the miracle. So, I want to talk to you today in this episode. I'd like to discuss with you the genius of Moses. And I feel this is an important topic because it will better help you to understand just who and what God actually is. Nobody knew God better. Not many people knew God better than Moses. So I think it's a good idea to glean knowledge from his experience with God. You see, most people who say that they believe in God really don't understand who or what he is, and therefore do not understand what it is they believe in. What's even more fascinating to me is that they are willing to sacrifice anything, including their wealth, children, and even their own lives, for something they know very little about. In reality, the only thing most people actually know about God is what someone else told them. The great Malcolm X once said, "Somebody told you something, and you believed it." The fact is that most people believe in God. They believe he is a person, a spirit, or a ghost. And if you don't believe me, just ask somebody to describe him. Matter of fact, ask somebody you trust. Ask somebody you know. Ask your neighbor or your friend. Ask your parents. Ask your pastor. Ask your grandmama. And really listen to them struggle to answer that question. Who is God? Not so with Moses. You see, Moses actually did know who God was. He understood God and spoke with him on a personal level. It is for this reason Moses is one of the most prominent figures in the Bible. It is for this reason Moses is the author of the first 5 books of the Bible, also known as the Torah. And lastly, it is also for this reason that I myself am so fixated, fascinated, and frankly obsessed with the man. In this episode, I'm going to show you and explain to you how much of the knowledge we have about God all stems from the genius of the man we call Moses. When people hear the word genius, they think of someone who is smart, right? The nerdy kid in class who will one day become your boss. Many people would say that Elon Musk is a genius, mainly because he is successful and has a lot of money. But people are foolish, and I highly doubt Elon Musk could have accomplished any of the things that Moses did. The definition of the word genius is broken up into 2 parts. The first one is exceptional intellectual or creative power or other natural ability. So the second definition says a person who is exceptionally intelligent or creative, either generally or in some particular respect. So the first one just is the first definition is just a broad definition. It's just saying somebody that's naturally, exceptionally intelligent or creative. But the second definition says that, a person that's just in general really intelligent or creative just in all aspects, or somebody who's creative or exceptionally intelligent in a particular aspect. Let me explain the difference between the two. Say you like average in one thing, but you're a genius when it comes to math. Or say you're average in everything else, but you're a genius when it comes to painting. Say you're just like everyone else in most aspects of life, but you're a genius when it comes to dancing. This is somebody who's a genius in a particular respect. The other kind of genius is someone who's just a genius in general. Think about this. Ask yourself or answer this question. Are you a horse or a goose? You see, the horse is the master of land. Nobody can run faster. Nobody's more majestic. Nobody's more sure-footed and graceful as the horse. He is king of the fields, the plains, and the grasslands. He is the king of land. Well, the goose, on the other hand, He's like a jack of all trades, master of none. He can waddle across land. He's not the most graceful and balanced, but he can manage. He can fly in the air. He's not the swiftest or, the most elegant, but he can get the job done. And hey, he's not a bad swimmer either. He's no dolphin, but he can get across the pond. So which one are you? Are you a goose? A jack of all trades, master of none? Or are you a horse? It's a good question. I'm going to give you a chance to answer that to yourself. Just kidding. No, I'm not. So, moving on. Now, Moses would have most certainly fit these definitions. And he was definitely of exceptional intelligence in general, meaning he wasn't just smart in a particular field such as math, science, or arts and crafts. Moses saw the world and life in general much differently than most people in any given time period in history. He had an advanced understanding of life and everything in it, and he used this unique ability to his advantage. Not only that, but Moses was so far ahead of everyone else that people took notice. His abilities were certainly not lost on the Egyptians, for they had picked up on his mental prowess from the time of his childhood. Flavius Josephus, in his book, The Antiquities of the Jews, says this about Moses, and we're going to break this up into two parts because I'm going to expound on what Flavius Josephus says about Moses. This is me proving that I'm not exaggerating when I said Moses was an X-Man. I'm about to prove to you that I wasn't exaggerating when I said Moses was a superhero with superpowers. I'm about to prove it to you right now with the writings of Flavius Josephus. So listen to what Flavius Josephus says. If you look on your screen, you see the first part of this passage is highlighted in bold red print, and the rest is in black. So we just gonna only take what's written in the bold red print for right now, because I want to break it down. Now listen to what Flavius Josephus says about Moses. He says, Now Moses' understanding became superior to his age, nay, far beyond that standard, and that when he was taught, he discovered greater quickness of apprehension than was usual at his age, and his actions at that time promised greater when he should come to the age of a man. Now let me break that down to you, okay? Let me break that down to you. It says, Now Moses' understanding became superior to his age, nay, far beyond that standard, and that when he was taught, he discovered greater quickness of apprehension than was usual at his age, and his actions at that time promised greater when he should come to the age of a man. What this is saying is that Moses was a fast learner. He was such a fast learner that it was well beyond a child of his age capability of learning that fast. It says, now Moses' understanding became superior to his age. What that means is he was way too smart for his age. Now Moses' understanding became superior to his age, nay, far beyond that standard, and that when he was taught, he discovered greater quickness of apprehension than was usual at his age. What that means is that Moses' genius was apparent even at his childhood. What Flavius Josephus has just told you is that this child was the advanced nature of his mind was far past anything that a child of his age should have been capable of. He goes on further to say that Moses discovered greater quickness of apprehension. What that means is he comprehended things quickly. He learned things quickly, and he understood them quickly. So much so that his teachers took notice. Let me put it to you like this. Imagine teaching someone something, and after you teach them, they understand it better than you do. Moses would have had the capability of understanding something just by looking at it. He would have understood something completely just by hearing about it. And we're talking as a child. Then Flavius Josephus goes on to say, and his actions at that time promised greater when he should come to the age of a man. What he's saying is that the Egyptians looked at this boy and they looked at what he was capable of as a child, and they extrapolated this to take an educated guess to ascertain what he would be capable of as a full-grown man. Imagine you see a baby lion and you say, man, this baby lion is really big for his age. He's just a baby and look how big he is. Imagine how big he's going to be when he's full grown. Well, that's what the Egyptians were saying about the child Moses. They said to themselves, this kid is smart far past anything that we've ever seen. Imagine how smart he's going to be when he grows up. Look at the trajectory that he's on. Imagine how potent his mind will be when he reaches adulthood. So, during the time before Moses' birth, Josephus also speaks of a prophecy which both the Egyptians and the Hebrews were well aware of. It was a prophecy which spoke of a child that would be born to the Hebrews, who would raise the Hebrews up high and bring the Egyptian people very low. The prospects of this prophecy was terrifying to the Egyptians, but to the Hebrews who were enslaved and or oppressed, well, it gave them hope. And so the Egyptians looked at this child genius that stood before them and wondered, could he be the one the prophecy spoke of? Could he be the prophecy fulfilled? They eyed this child, who was clearly advanced well beyond his years, and said to themselves, what are we to do with the child Moses? Now, let me elaborate a little bit more, because Josephus says one thing, and I interpret it, I don't think differently than what he's saying it, but I interpret it in my own way. What Josephus says is this. He says that the great minds of the Egyptian government took notice of how smart Moses was. They took notice of his genius. It was inescapable. He was so far advanced for his age They had to take notice. Josephus says that they thought to themselves, imagine how smart he's going to be when he grows up. And they wondered, what are we to do with the child Moses? What that means is that these grown men are afraid of this child. They feel threatened. Imagine the genius you would have to make Egyptian nobles, grown men, feel threatened by you. Egypt was one of the most advanced civilizations in ancient times. They were known for magic. They were known for sorcery. They believed in many gods, and they worshiped Pharaoh as a living god. Imagine the Egyptian government, the Egyptian higher-ups, the high priests and nobles. Imagine them gathering around Moses or gathering to have a meeting about Moses. They're saying to themselves, first of all, they're saying to themselves, what is it? Meaning Moses. What is it? I'll give them this. What the Egyptians knew is they had within their presence, they had within their grasp a weapon of mass destruction. And it was a weapon of mass destruction in the form of a child. They knew this. The question was, what do we do with it? What do we do with it? Is it a god? What is it? And what do we do with it? Some of the Egyptians said, we can use this. We can use this as an asset. The nation, our great country, Egypt, is being currently overrun by Nubians from the south. We can teach this child and raise him up and pit him against our enemies, and he'll bring us great victory. Not a bad idea. But the other half of the Egyptians said, kill it. And kill it quickly before it gets any bigger. They didn't know what to do with Moses. They didn't know quite what he was. And this child, so was the genius of this child that he made some of the most powerful men on the planet Earth very uncomfortable just by being himself. They didn't know what he was. He was a it. And they didn't know what to do with it. Some said use it. Some said kill it before it grows up. So the Egyptians eyed this child who was clearly advanced well beyond his years, and they said to themselves, what are we to do with the child Moses? Some sought to slay him and rid themselves of the worry. But Moses was the adopted son of the king's daughter, and that complicated any plots to assassinate the child. On the other hand, some of the Egyptians thought to use the child Moses to their benefits. You see, at the time of the child Moses, the king of Egypt was without a son and therefore without an heir. And some Egyptians thought to themselves that if Moses was not if he was not the prophecy fulfilled, if he was not the one of whom the prophecy spoke of, and if he could furthermore be controlled and manipulated, then he could prove to be a valuable asset to the realm and possibly even heir to the throne. You see, at the time of the child Moses, the Egyptians were in desperate need of both an asset and an heir. They were in fact in need of rescue. The African Nubian tribes to the south of Egypt, they were Egypt's bitter rival, and they had invaded the land. In fact, they had overrun the land. Maybe, perhaps this child was the solution to their dilemma. And so the Egyptians, they waited. They waited and they watched. And they watched Moses like a hawk. They watched him as he learned. They watched him as he grew from a child to a man. And Moses, being extremely keen, being thoroughly aware and prospicient, he conducted himself appropriately. The Bible says Moses was the most humble man on earth. No man on earth was more humble than he. He was a genius. I think he knew the gig. I think he knew the gig was up. Like, he was on to the Egyptians. This little child growing up and all through his childhood to a man, he was a genius. They childish attempts to be secretive would have not gone unnoticed to Moses even when he was a child. They would have been like children to his genius mind. So I believe he knew what was up. I believe he knew people were looking to use him. I believe he knew people were looking to kill him. I believe he understood why people looked at him the way they did, even then as a child. So Moses conducted himself appropriately. But there was just one thing that never quite sat well with Moses. It would eventually one day get him into big trouble and cause him to be a fugitive on the run from Egypt. It was something that gnawed at his heart and soul his entire life. And that thing was slavery. When Moses came into manhood, the Egyptians said, "It's time to put the child prodigy to the test. It's time to get a return on our investment." So they pit the now grown and inexperienced man Moses against the armies of Nubia. If he was successful, hey, he would rid Egypt of its foreign invaders. And if he failed, the Egyptians would be rid of him and rid of the threat that he posed. It was a win-win situation, or so they thought. Now, let's go back and finish reading what Josephus has to say in his passage. Because what Josephus says in his passage has a lot to do with how Moses defeats this Nubian army. Let's dig and delve into the mind of Moses real quick before we even read this passage. Because understand, this man has never been to war. He's being set up. So now we get a glimpse into his genius. Listen to how Moses defeated the Nubian armies. The Nubian citadel, or their headquarters, or their capital city, was situated in such a way that there was only so many ways to access it. One of the ways to access, or one of the roads to the Nubian capital city, was through an area that the Nubians were confident no one would ever come through. So when Moses was assigned the task to go up and fight the Nubians, he knew that the best place to hit them was at their heart, at their capital city. He knew this famous forbidden road. No one ever took that road to Nubia because it was infested with serpents at one point. So Moses said to himself, that's the least likely place the Nubians expect me to come from. So that's the place where I'm coming from. Now, how did he conquer the serpent-riddled area that blocked the road or blocked that pathway? Here's what he did. He was the general of the army. The Egyptians put him in control of their small but sturdy army. So he knew he had the authority to command. So he told his troops, everyone is to gather a baby stork, and you are to raise that stork from a baby to adulthood. And you will do this upon pain of death. Why did he threaten his troops with death if they didn't raise a baby stork to adulthood? Well, here's why. Moses says to himself, we're going to take this road, we're going to take the road less traveled to catch the Nubians off guard in an ambush. But there's this part in the road, or there's this part on this road that's infested and riddled with serpents. That's why nobody ever takes this route. So Moses said to himself, what is the natural enemy of serpents? The natural enemy of serpents, well, one of them at least, are storks. They're good at killing them and eating them and not getting bit in the process. So Moses says, I'm going to need an ample amount of storks when I get to this obstacle in my path. And the way I'm going to get it is I'm going to threaten my troops who I have authority and command over. I'm going to command them and threaten them on pain of death that they are to gather these storks, one stork to each man, and raise it. I know they don't want to die, so I know when I get to this obstacle in the road, I'm going to have the resources to overcome this obstacle. So each soldier in Moses' army gets a baby stork. And as they march to Nubia on this road that nobody takes, on this route that nobody takes because everybody knows it's riddled with serpents, Moses takes this route. He has grown storks that he releases when he gets to the serpent-riddled area. And he's able to catch the Nubians off guard, unaware, surprised, and in an ambush. He lays siege to the capital city. But he doesn't got it. He doesn't got the capital city yet. So he hasn't won yet. Let me show you another one of Moses's natural attributes that helps him to take this capital Nubian city. Josephus says, finishing the passage of Josephus, he says, God did also give him that tallness when he was but 3 years old, as was wonderful. And as for his beauty, there was nobody so unpolite as when they saw Moses. They were not greatly surprised at the beauty of his countenance. Nay, it happened frequently that those that met him as he was carried along the road were obliged to turn again upon seeing the child. That they left what they were about and stood still a great while to look on him. For the beauty of the child was so remarkable and natural to him on many accounts that it detained the spectators and made them stay longer to look upon him. What Josephus is saying is that Moses was fine, y'all. He wasn't just fine. He was a showstopper. Josephus says that when people, well, first he says he lets you know that Moses was going to be a tall man. It says that God did also give him that tallness when he was but 3 years old. So what that's saying is you could tell by the time he was 3 that he was going to be a tall man. It says, and as for his beauty, there was nobody so unpolite as when they saw Moses. People forgot, when people saw this child, they forgot their manners. He says they were not greatly surprised at the beauty of his countenance. Nay, it happened frequently. It happened all the time that as he was traveling or being carried on the road, that people stopped what they were doing to look at him. And they sat and they stared and they forgot about what they were there for in the first place. This boy was a neck breaker. He was a show stopper. This goes all the way back to when Moses was born. The first thing Moses' mother said after she birthed him was, she said, this is a goodly child. She saying he looked good. He's going to look good. When she sent Moses up the river in a reed basket in an attempt to save his life, Pharaoh's daughter found Moses. And the first thing Pharaoh's daughter said was, this is a goodly child. He looks good. So Moses' beauty goes all the way back to his birth. This boy was considered extremely attractive from the moment he came out the womb. And Josephus is backing this up. He's co-stamping it. Yeah, this man, since he was a boy, he was beautiful as a boy, and he grew up to be fine, y'all. Okay? Now think about the different perks that come along with being attractive. You get favoritism. You get jobs. You're more likely to be successful. You might even be more likely to be stalked, and you know what I mean? You might be more likely to cause somebody to die or even get killed yourself. You're more likely to fall in love. People are going to love you, even if you don't love them back. Attractive people, they get more attention. They get more time. They get more devotion. They get more opportunity. They get more protection. They get more freedom. In short, attractive people have many advantages. So when Moses went up against the Nubian armies, the genius of his military strategies allowed him to catch the Nubians unprepared and completely unaware. He surprised them at the capital city in an ambush. But it was Moses' beauty and demeanor, another God-given attribute, which caught the eye of the Nubian princess that allowed him to take the city. The Bible states in Numbers 12:1 that Moses' brother Aaron and sister Miriam criticized and spake against him for marrying an Ethiopian woman. So how did this come to be? Well, when Moses ambushed the Ethiopian capital city, or the Nubian capital city, the Nubian princess saw Moses from the ramparts and fell deeply in love with him upon sight. So the princess of the city, the princess of the capital city that Moses has besieged, she's watching him attack and try to break into the capital city. She's watching him from the ramparts. She's looking down at Moses and his army, attacking her city and her people. And she falls in love with the man. That's how fine Moses was. You don't hear about that. That's something the Bible didn't really tell you. Moses was exceedingly beautiful. He captured the heart of this princess, and he never said 2 words to her. All it took was for her to look at him, and she fell in love with him. And she made a deal with Moses that if he promised to marry her, that she would have her men secretly open the city gates, providing Moses a much, much easier victory. Now, when Moses was 40, he killed an Egyptian slaver. When Pharaoh finds out, Moses flees Egypt as a fugitive. He takes refuge in a land called Midian. Yeah, I've said that about 1,000,000 times. And in the land of Midian, he encounters the burning bush. Now, let me ask you something. Okay? And I want to look at you when I ask you, okay? And I don't want you to lie. I just said Moses killed an Egyptian slave. He caught him beating one of Moses' Hebrew people. And Moses killed him. And Pharaoh found out about it. So Moses fled to the land of Midian, like I just said to you. And while in the land of Midian, Moses encounters the proverbial burning bush. We all know what it's about. And Moses says that God spoke to him from the burning bush. Now, my question to you is, do you really believe that a bush spoke? I'm going to wait for your answer. And I want you to take me seriously and give me an honest answer. I want you to look into this screen. I want you to look me in my eyes through the screen. And I want you to say out loud that bush talked. It doesn't matter if it was on fire or not. Look at me right now and say it out loud. I want you to say, yes, Soapman, a bush talked. And I want you to repeat yourself so that you can hear how ridiculous you sound, saying that a bush spoke. One of the things you gotta realize is when Moses encounters the burning bush, he doesn't know what it is. He's trying to describe something to you, and he does not know what it is. So he's telling you what he thinks it is. He's telling you what it looks like. If you go back and read the Bible, and I did this a couple episodes ago when Moses first encounters the burning bush, he said he sees it from afar and he says, "What is this bush that burns but is not consumed?" And so the Bible says that Moses says to himself, "I will go in closer and investigate to see what this great sight is, this bush that burns but is not consumed." He's going to get a closer look to investigate because he doesn't understand what he's looking at. It may not have even been a bush, and it may not have been on fire. We don't know what Moses saw, and whatever he saw, it was his first time ever seeing it. He had never seen it before. He didn't understand. He didn't know what he was looking at. He's trying to explain it to you. He's trying to describe to you something that he has never seen before. And we still don't know what that is. But use your greater reason. You know, bushes do not talk. It is impossible for a bush to speak. I went through this on my Adam and Eve episode with the talking snake. Come on, man. Come on. Say it loud. Say it out loud. Tell me, Soapman, snakes talk. Or that one snake talk. Say it out loud. Let the kids hear you. Snakes do not talk, and neither do bushes. It goes against the laws of nature. One thing that Moses was definitely a genius in was the laws of nature. When Moses says he saw a bush on fire that was not being consumed, it's because that's the only way he could describe something he had never seen before. And when he says that the fiery bush spoke to him, he does not literally mean like how I'm speaking to you now. Think about this. Have you ever read a book and you said to yourself, man, that book really spoke to me? Have you ever seen a movie and you said to yourself, man, I really got a deep meaning out of that movie. It really spoke to me. Another word for it is resonate. Maybe it was a song you heard and you say, man, you know that song really resonated with me on another level. Well, that's what Moses means when he says that God spoke to him through the burning bush. What he's saying is, I saw something I never saw before. This is what it looked like. And this is the understanding that I got from it. It spoke to me. I learned from it. I realized something. I had an awakening. And I'm going to prove this to you in later episodes, how God speaks to people. It's not in an audible voice like how I'm speaking to you. And that's not what Moses is trying to say. And I'll prove that to you in later episodes. My goal this episode was to show you that a lot of the legend that comes from Moses stems from the fact that he was a genius. Think about this, and we coming to the end of this episode, okay? But just think about this. If your mind is much more advanced than everyone else's, you are going to come off to them as somebody special. You are going to come across to them as someone great. Now, in the land of Egypt, they worshiped many gods. Pharaohs were worshiped as the living embodiment of gods, as human gods. So a person with the advanced intellect of Moses would have seemed God-like in the land of Egypt. These men standing around the baby Moses had to have looked at him like he was some type of alien. They had to have really wondered to themselves what to do with him. I think the people that were threatened by the baby Moses had a legitimate concern. They understood that they had something very powerful in their hands, and that it could go either way. We could unleash this on our enemies, or it could be unleashed upon us. And in the end, that weapon of mass destruction went off in Egypt. So I hope you see now that Moses wasn't so much a miracle worker as he was a miracle himself. His whole life story is a miracle. From before he was born, he was a prophecy before he was even born. His coming was told of before he came. And I think his genius stemmed this legendary magic, sorcery, divine trail that he left behind. It all stems from his genius. He was able to perform and impress on a level that has never been done before. He knew things before they were going to happen. He was not just a genius, he was a prophet. He was a gorgeous, beautiful prophet and genius. And when you put all those together, what you have is a superhero with superpowers, a modern day X-Man, a modern day Avenger in the flesh, real life. So that concludes today's episode of Son of a Preacher Man. I hope you learned something. If you got any comments, disagreements, insults, badgering, butchering, leave it in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel. Deuces.